Real quick, guys, I'm live every day on Twitch TV/Quest. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you have any questions about the build as well, leave it down in the description. I'll catch you guys on my stream. Enjoy the video. Peace, boys. All right, headed over to our gear now. We're going to start with our helmet. We're going to have total armor on it, dex, cooldown reduction, and 3 ranks of cold imbue. This is what you want to run. Make sure you get cooldown reduction. It's very, very important on your rogue. And then for our aspect, we're going to be having basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 2 seconds. It doesn't matter if you roll that at 2 seconds or 6 seconds. Doesn't really matter. You're going to be running a lot of basic skills anyway and using them all the time. And headed over to our chest piece now. We're going to have 60 dex, maximum life, damage reduction from distant enemies. I wish I rolled close, but maybe I'll re-roll it for 20 million gold again. And then 10% total armor. And here's a really, really important and very good aspect for your rogue, because rogue has a lot of problems with survivability, especially at late or end game now. So you gain 40% increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 40%. You're going to be doing the 40% instantly. You're going to be getting that armor because of how fast you're going to be attacking with this flurry build. Headed over to our gloves now. We're going to have that 10% attack speed, 4 ranks of flurry. I actually got a max roll on the flurry there. Lucky hit chance and critical strike chance. I'm not a big fan of having lucky hit on this piece. I'm not a big fan of lucky hit and how it even works in this game. But that's a whole other discussion. So if you can roll something else on that, that'd be great. But try to at least get your 4 ranks of flurry and crit strike chance are probably the main 2, and attack speed as well, because you're going to be seeing later when I show some gameplay at the end how fast this build actually is in terms of attacking. I haven't seen many people run the flurry, so it's really, really cool. And I think it's actually a better Twisted Blades at the moment, especially for survivability. Now for our aspect here, it's going to be chilled enemies hit by your grenade skills have a chance equal to double your critical strike chance to be instantly frozen for 2 seconds. You deal 15 times increased critical strike damage against frozen enemies. So the first part of this aspect actually doesn't matter. It's the second part. And let me tell you, the damage you do when you deal at 15% times to frozen enemies is insane just to have. And you can roll that up to 25%. I haven't seen bigger numbers hit in this game. When I freeze people, it's just insane. I haven't really seen it. So you can replace this, but if you want the damage, I'm just using these gloves. It's kind of like a boost in damage, and Flurry kind of needs it. Like I said, it's not the best damage compared to Twisted Blades, but it's a little bit better for survivability. And in my opinion, like endgame content is a lot easier with Flurry. Headed over to our pants. We're going to be running the unique pants. I wanted to give you guys an alternative option here, but I just don't see these pants ever being beat or ever being replaced in any build I make for Rogue. It's especially good with Flurry because Flurry is basically it's giving you maximum health constantly, because when you're doing damage, you're going to be getting more life. So let's just read the aspect here for a second. Effects that heal you beyond 100% life grant you a barrier up to 76% of your maximum life. That lasts for 8 seconds. So I'm constantly doing damage, and it's quick amount of damage. I have the attack speed high, and then I'm getting that barrier up because I'm getting that maximum life back to me. Also, these pants roll with up to a 5% chance to heal for 737 life. That could be rolled up to 1254. So it's pretty good. Like I said, it's a lucky hit chance, but I mean, you need anything you can probably or possibly get for heals, especially on Rogue. Headed over to our boots now. These are kind of like my movement boots. I noticed that my movement was kind of slow, so I ended up running these boots. You gain 75% movement speed when you evade, movement speed for killing an elite, damage reduction while injured. Like I said, if you get anything that's damage reduction while you're close to enemies, that'd be a lot better. But 3 ranks of Shadow Step. Shadow Steps is very important, and more movement speed. So what I have on this aspect is actually an additional Shadow Step. So killing somebody with Shadow Step refunds a charge and increases the damage of my Shadow Step by 4% for 2 seconds. That could go up to 20%. So you having 2 Shadow Steps on this build or any build on Rogue is like a must, because you don't really have a lot of unstoppable on Rogue compared to other classes, and you kind of need to use Shadow Step as your #1 way out of some risky situations, especially if you're on hardcore. You probably know this already. So let's go over to our crossbow now. Like I said, you want to use crossbows more than if you've been watching my streams, you know how much I talk about this. more than bows because you're just always getting vulnerable damage. So 60% vulnerable damage plus another 60%, 180 dex, 72 all stats, and damage to frozen enemies just to help with the freeze. And I haven't really seen too many cold imbuements like builds, so hopefully you guys enjoy this. It's a little bit more different than probably what you've been seeing around. So our aspect is, it's kind of similar to the ones you probably have seen with Twisted Blades, where Flurry damages enemies in a circle around you and it deals 22% increased damage. So this is similar to this build right here. So the Twisted Blades would spin around you. This is kind of the same concept, except it's faster than the Twisted Blades. And then you're just doing a base 22% X increased damage on your Flurry. So you could actually roll that to 30%, which is really, really cool. Headed over to our jewelry now. We're going to have a lot of damage reduction, damage, and then you're going to want to roll 3 ranks of Frigid Finesse if possible. I'll show that in the skill tree. So Frigid Finesse is pretty much just giving you an extra bonus in terms of killing chilled enemies, and frozen enemies are going to get that damage bonus. I think right now I have 25% versus chilled enemies and 50% versus frozen, and then dealing 35% increased damage while you have a barrier active. And now this is where it starts to add up a little bit with the build. So you're going to always have that barrier up pretty much. I'm going to show you some gameplay at the end where you're always going to have barrier, and you're always going to be doing a 35% times increased damage while you have that up. And like I said, you're doing damage with Flurry, you're getting your maximum life above what it should be, which means you earned a barrier, which now you're doing more damage and keeping that barrier up longer. So now moving to our second ring here, critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 24%. That's going to be the aspect we're running. And like I said, attack speed is attack speed is attack speed. If you can get attack speed on everything, you're going to notice a difference. Like I'm running caltrops on this build, and my caltrops felt really clunky in the past, and I didn't like the skill at all. And then once I started getting these attack speeds going, the animation's just 10 times faster. It feels really fluid to play, and it feels really, really good. So there we go. We also got damage to slowed enemies, which is going to help when we freeze, critical strike damage, critical strike with imbued, and critical strike chance. Headed over to our next piece of jewelry here. We have damage to crowd controlled enemies, critical strike damage, damage to enemies affected by your trap skills, which is going to be our death trap, and critical strike chance. You're going to want as much critical strike chance and critical strike damage as you can get possible on your rings. And then this is a very important aspect. Distant enemies have an 8% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds when they hit you, and you deal 40% times increased damage to stunned enemies. So the 40% is just going to help when you shadow step somebody, and it's also going to help a lot with this aspect right here in terms of survivability and just doing that 40%. So caltrops also drop a cluster of exploding stun grenades that deal 2,000 damage. So the damage is whatever. It's kind of bad. And stun enemies. So when you stun enemies with your caltrops, you're going to have a time. Basically, I'm going to show you with the gameplay, like I said, what you're going to want to do with this build. You're going to want to run caltrops, use your caltrops, go inside into the horde of enemies, shadow step in there, and then everybody's going to be stunned. You're just going to be doing the 40% damage. And like caltrops also helps with freezing enemies. So imagine the 40% plus what you're going to be getting when you get the 15% plus your frigid finesse. You'll see all this come together with the build. And then for my dagger, if you don't have these uniques, you can probably replace this, but this does help a lot with attack speed. I really think this is the best dagger. Actually, I prefer to run swords. So if you don't have this dagger, run a sword instead, because with swords, you're always going to be getting that critical strike damage. I normally don't like to run any daggers on my rogue builds, but right here, this is the only one I will run because the amount of attack speed you get is insane. You get up to 25%. So really, really nice. And now let's head over to our skill tree. All right, headed over to our skill tree now. We're going to be running Puncture. You probably have seen every rogue run this. It's just, in my opinion, the best. You're just getting vulnerable all the time. So Puncture is going to be our number one. Of course, for our basic skills, and headed over to our core skills now, we're going to be running Sturdy. You gain 12% close damage reduction, and Symphony Strikes heal for 3% of your maximum life when you critically strike close enemies. So more maximum life equals more barriers. And now Flurry, I actually have this out of 9 out of 5, so it's really, really good. I'm just going to show you guys my Flurry stats, maximum. So this is what I've been talking about here. Each time Flurry damages a crowd control or vulnerable enemy, you are healed for 1% of your maximum life, up to 12% maximum life per cast. So, and you're going to see I'm going to be doing a lot of cast, especially with that attack speed going up. So if Flurry hits a vulnerable, any vulnerable enemy, it will make all enemies hit by that cast vulnerable. So more vulnerability means more damage. Onto our stutter step here. Critically striking an enemy grants 15% movement speed for 4 seconds. So movement speed equals more survivability. You're going to want to get out of situations if you don't have your shadow step on. So headed over now to our agility skills. We got shadow step, of course. You're going to want to run this, and enemies damaged by your shadow step are stunned, so you can get that 40% extra damage. Headed over now to our weapon mastery. Make sure you guys have this maxed out. You could have the 3 out of 3 on your amulet instead and then put the rest into frigid finesse, but I like to roll frigid finesse on my amulets. And our caltrops now. So the most important thing about your caltrops is obviously getting that increased damage, but now caltrops deals cold damage and chills enemies for 20% per second. So this is going to help you freeze your enemies, and you don't if you don't want to run caltrops, you don't have to. It makes a world of a difference in this build. Just takes a while to get used to, and I really hope you guys, if you do try this build, just try to get used to it. I think you would really enjoy it. So headed over to our subterfuge skills now. We're not actually running any of them. We're just running the perks below here. You deal 18% X increased damage to healthy and injured enemies, and malice. So you deal 9% increased damage, 9% X increased damage to vulnerable enemies. So headed over to our imbuements now. We're obviously going to be running cold imbue, and you're going to run the last perk here. So you deal 20% X damage to crowd controlled enemies, double this bonus against frozen enemies, so that goes up to 40%. And most of the enemies I fight are always going to be frozen. The only ones that probably won't be are boss fights. So this build is a little weaker in terms of single target, but once you get inner sight going, you do pump out a lot of damage. So and now obviously our frigid finesse, this is what I was trying to explain earlier. You deal 25% increased damage to chilled enemies, and it increases to 50% against frozen enemies. Also, precision imbuement, you gain 9% increased critical strike chance, so when you imbue. So it's just, the amount of damage is crazy, the potential of this, and I think I can get this build stronger as well. So up to a 30% chance to gain 8 energy, you're going to want to run this. Headed over down here, trap mastery. When poison trap or death trap activates, you gain 12% increased critical strike damage against vulnerable and crowd controlled enemies. Obviously we're going to be running death trap here. I think death trap is the best ultimate and the best skill Rogue has. So after using an ultimate skill, restore 50 energy, you're going to want to run aftermath. Adrenaline rush, you gain 5% increased energy while moving. And haste, so while at or above 50% maximum energy, you gain 15% increased movement. While below 50% maximum energy, you gain 15 increased attack speed. So that's going to help a lot with your attack speed once again. And now for our key passives, we're going to run exposure. So dealing direct damage to an enemy affected by trap skill has up to a 25% chance to reduce the active cooldown of your trap skills by 20%, or drop a cluster of exploding stun grenades. So here you go. Stuns equals 40% X damage. Even when they're frozen, I don't even know what the multipliers add up to. I just know it's a lot of damage you do. So there are my skill trees, and now let's head over to the Paragon board. All right, headed over to our Paragon board. You'll probably see this a lot on Rogues. We're all running the same Paragon board because there's not much differences with this, especially after the nerf. So I'm just going to go over all the important slots here, and our glyphs we're going to be running closer, and you guys can just pause this at any time if you need to copy this as well. Trapper, deadly ambush, cunning, spring loaded, engineering, and then for our glyph we're going to be running diminish, which is really good. Then headed over here, spearhead, wills, devious, cheap shot, safeguard, and then for our glyphs we're going to be running combat. So I need to get intelligence up on this, but that's going to happen when I level it up a little bit more. And then headed here we're going to be running brawler, lawless, focused, havoc, and Also Frost Feeder. So Frost Feeder is really important. 50% damage to chilled enemies. So make sure, and also you get a 20% X increased chill effect. So make sure you're running Frost Feeder for this build specifically. And then over here, we're going to be running Knowledge Exploit as our glyph, which is really good, and Training. And this is going to be under the No Witnesses Paragon board. So there you guys go. That's pretty much everything covered with this build. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some gameplay of it in effect now. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm going to be posting more Diablo builds soon, and I'm live every day on Twitch TV/Quest. Links in the description. And let's head over to some gameplay. Peace, boys.
Time.